Welcome back to the channel. This is Wei Hao at Direct Impact Solutions. In this video, I will discuss the answer to our Halloween challenge and explain why the validation seems to work inconsistently. If you haven't tried the challenge, please pause this video and use the link below to check out the previous video. Then come back to see if you get the right answer. Also, this video contains a second challenge that expands on the answer to the original challenge. Watch until the end of the video to find out. The first thing I want to point out is that everything explained in this video is based on the assumption that under the validate data in this field section, I choose only during data entry. A lot of the behavior will change if I set it to the always option, and that deserves its own video. With that assumption out of the way, the key to understand the behavior shown in the challenge is that FileMaker processes the member of value list validation before it runs auto enters. First, let's look at the scenario where the user selects a value from the dropdown list. In this scenario, when the user selects a value from the list, the value contains extra trailing spaces. Then, this value passes through the validation. The validation compares this value to the value list and concludes that it matches one of the members, so it passes the validation. After that, the auto enter triggers and strip away the extra spaces, leaving a value with no extra spaces in the end. Now, let's look at the second scenario where the user types in the value. An important detail here is that the option to auto-complete using value list is turned on for the field with the dropdown list. So when we type in one of the values that are supposed to have extra trailing spaces, even though we didn't type in the space ourselves, the autocomplete added those spaces for us. And then, similar to the previous scenario, this value with extra spaces passes through validation successfully. And then the extra space gets stripped away by the auto enter. Now, let's look at the third scenario, where we copy and paste the value into the field. When we copy and paste the value like this, it won't trigger the autocomplete. So no extra spaces will be added. Now, this value without spaces are being validated against the value list. Of course, it won't be able to find an exact matching value as it has no trailing spaces. This is why the validation throws an error at us. So this shows us that when it comes to the member of a value list validation, as long as the input fulfills the validation rule, the final result doesn't have to. Can we make a statement to say all validation rules run before auto enter? Is this a common behavior for all validation rules, or is this specific to this one validation rule? Here's the follow-up challenge. You see all types of validation rules listed on the left side of the screen. I can tell you some of them run before auto enters, just like the member of a drop-down list rule. Some run after the auto enter, meaning the input doesn't have to follow the rules as long as the final result does, which is the opposite behavior. And a few of them operate both before and after the auto enter, meaning both the input and the final result need to follow the validation rules. Can you tell me which ones belong to which category? If you need some time, feel free to pause this video. I'll review the answer in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. All right, I assume you're ready. Here's the final answer. Validation on member of a drop-down list, maximum characters, range, and strict data type run before auto enter. You've already seen the member of a drop-down list behavior from the original challenge. Let me use the maximum character as another example. Here I have a field that should only accept up to 3 characters. It has an auto enter that will populate the field with more than 3 characters. But as long as I enter a value that has less than 3 characters, it's fine, despite the fact that the final result doesn't follow the rule. But if my input has more than 3 characters, the validation error will pop up. The other two have similar behavior. On the flip side, calculated rules and not empty run after the auto enter. Let me use the calculated rules as example. For this particular field, I put in a rule that wants to make sure the value does not contain any spaces. And there's an auto enter that replaces my input with a value that doesn't have spaces. As you can see, I can enter values that has spaces, which violates the rule. However, as the final result gets replaced by something that passes the rule, I don't get any validation error. This means the validation runs after the auto enter. Similar behavior applies to the not empty rule. This field has an auto enter that will populate the field with a not empty value. So if I clear the field, the auto enter will fire first, populating the field with a value. Then that value passes the non-empty validation check, giving me no error message. There's a third category, which apply to the unique and existing value validations. I assume it's because these two validation rules use the same duplication checking mechanism within FileMaker. For these two, the validation seems to run both before and after auto enter. Take the existing value as an example. Let me set up the auto enter to always populating it with a existing value. We have other record here that already have the value. If I enter a unique value that doesn't exist yet, my input doesn't follow the rule. However, because of the auto enter, the final result will. As you can see, this triggers the validation error. So this means that the validation ran on my input before the auto enter even fires. Okay, let me change the auto enter to make sure that the final result will be unique by using a UID here. Now, when I enter a value that already exists, my input follows the rule, but my final result doesn't. So when I do that, as you can see, the auto enter fired because now there's a UID in place replacing my input. However, the validation error pops up again, showing that the validation also runs after the auto enter. And that is the end of the video. If you learned something new or enjoy the content, don't forget to leave us a like and subscribe to the channel. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next time.